Mine is the only voice.
Wow.
What have I been doing?
Lay down my autonomy.
After that, it got very dark very quickly.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Cults to Consciousness. My name is Shalise Sansola, your host for today, and usually most days, unless it's Jonathan. We are here to talk about the AUB, the Apostolic United Brethren, which is an offshoot of Mormonism, a polygamous offshoot, and the one you've probably heard of with sister wives. So today I am joined by someone who we already did an interview with and her husband. Thank you so much for coming back, Melanie, and now Cory.
Hello, guys.
Hi, thanks for having us back.
Yes, of course. And you guys have your own fabulous YouTube channel where you talk about the AUB that recently started blowing up with a viral video. We've had a lot of people over from your channel watching our interview, and it's been so great to see those comments and people getting excited to hear a deep dive on your story. So we're going to talk about all the things today as far as what it's like going back into the community that you were a part of for hard things like funerals, those emotions that come up. And we're going to talk about your family's reaction to your YouTube channel and how they've been taking it all, if it's presented any questions or good conversation. And of course, the hard things that you kind of have to talk about when mentioning, I don't know if exposing is the right word, but talking all about the AUB on your channel. So first, we're just going to do a little nutshell version of your story for those who haven't seen your first interview, and then we'll get into all of that. And if you're watching live, thank you so much for being here. Drop those questions and comments down in the chat, and Jonathan will be popping those up on the screen, and we'll be taking those questions shortly. So Melanie, having said all that, can you give us a nutshell version of your story and kind of how we got to where we are now?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in the polygamous cult, the AUB. My dad is the current prophet. I'm one of the oldest of 350 grandchildren that are all a part of the AUB. Most of them are. And I was married a week after I turned 17 and left the AUB for good at 25. And then met Cory after that. Cory's from the AUB too, but met Cory after that. And we got married when I was 27, and we've just been raising our kids and being a part of, I'm the oldest, he's the oldest. So we have a lot of interaction with a lot of our family still in the AUB.
Yeah, so the AUB must have been big enough for you guys to not have met. I mean, obviously, you're one of 350 grandchildren, huge families, lots of moms, lots of children. So how did you not cross paths before? Have you kind of figured it out?
Well, we did a few times, but I got married so young, I just didn't pay attention because I was already married. Cory dated my ex-husband's little sister for a while, so I knew of him. I just didn't know him very well until I turned about 22, 23. And then we kind of slightly got to be friends, got to know each other. But yeah, he lived in Pinesdale in Montana, and I lived here in Utah. And when you get married that young and you get taken out of the dating pool, I was into babies, not boys. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So part of your story too, that's a big part of your story, is the fact that your dad was higher in the ranks growing up in the church, and then he became the prophet. And there was a comment that I wanted to read from somebody. Kimberly says, I love that in the start of Mel's story, she thought she didn't have a voice, and now she's questioning a prophet of what God sounds like. Even I feel as if wouldn't be comfortable asking that of a religious leader. So great to hear about your strength and growth. And I do think, Jonathan and I were talking about this before we got on, that your story does have a full 180 because you're seeing, wait, how could this abusive man, who is my dad, be the mouthpiece for God? And I'm sure that really rocked you in such a profound way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I read that comment too, and I really appreciated the noticing of that because I really did grow up feeling like my voice caused separation and didn't feel like I had a voice. And then my dad became one of the apostles of the AUB when I was 19 years old. So that was my first major crisis of faith in my life. I hadn't had one up until then. I mean, other than just trying to learn how to be a sister wife, watching my ex-husband date, those were crises of faith, but not at this level. So when he became the prophet or one of the apostles, it was a big obstacle for me to overcome. And it took me quite a few years to get to the point where I could be okay with it. But then my younger siblings, they just all grew up knowing my dad was just always one of the leaders. And so the crisis of faith didn't come for most of my other siblings till a few years ago when he became the prophet. About 3-4 years now, he's been the prophet.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I imagine that would be a lot to deal with. And we've talked about in your interview how you've tried to have conversations with your dad, like, what's it like talking to God? Because you have these expectations. And that's what it is to be a Mormon. Even like any of the denominations believe that they have the one true prophet and they're all speaking directly to God, having conversations, having revelations. And so it's interesting that he's like, oh, don't talk about that. But it makes you wonder, like, okay, so let's pull the curtain a little bit and see who's back there.
Because I'd never been that close to somebody. Exactly. Like, what is this? I'd never been close enough to somebody to ask them those questions. I'd asked him other questions, being one of the leaders, like when they go into these special prayer meetings or special temple ceremonies, I'd asked him other questions like that. But when you're the big cheese, like that is a whole different, like you get a lot more downloads than the rest of the people do. So that's where I was curious. Cory just mocked
sarcasm. So
Cory, I want to hear from you, though. I don't know a whole lot about your story. Could you give us a brief overview of your experience of the AUB before you left?
Oh, I was born into it. My dad decided that, he was a Vietnam vet and joined the Mormon Church, and then met some of the AUB leadership and decided to join the polygamist group. And so he ended up marrying 9 wives, had 39 children, living in a compound. Well, United Order. We call it a compound as just because of big love, but they called it the United Order of the Ranch when we were growing up. And we lived in one great big house. We called it the big house and the cabin, which was next door. But we all ate together. We all worked together. So 39 of us running around farming and taking care of the ranch up there and living in the United Order. So
Melanie had mentioned to you that you were sort of like a lost boy in FLDS terms, as far as not enough women, so they got to push some of the men out. Can you talk about your exit out of the group?
Yeah. I questioned. I was one of the older. I was my mom's oldest child, and I wanted to be really good at their faith and learn all the stuff. But at about 14, I studied just as much or more than they did about their faith. And I had so many questions about their faith, and they couldn't answer all the questions. And so I started, we had too many questions. And there are a lot of us out of the 39 children that were all raised in that way, in that home. There are only 3 of them that are still a part of the AUB.
No way.
Yeah, all the rest of us. And it's kind of interesting because all of my mothers came from outside of the AUB, and my dad came from outside the AUB. So they all came from different religions.
Yeah, you don't even have one mom that was born
part of the AUB.
Oh, wow.
Nope.
I guess I didn't realize that.
So yeah, basically I dated a little bit in the AUB, but I was very vocal that I wasn't going to be a polygamist. And then I got to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm not dating AUB members.
And then you married
because
one.
I'm not going to, yep. But we had a long conversation. Yeah, we had a long conversation when we started to date that, hey, I'm never going to be a polygamist. I'm not going to be part of the AUB. I don't believe your dad's the prophet. So, yeah, we had that communication before we started dating. fun little fact. I was dating her.
Ex-sister-in-law.
Yeah, her ex-sister-in-law. So I actually came to her first wedding.
He was at my first wedding. We did not
Oh
know
my
this until
gosh.
we got together.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue either until later on, but I brought her down here to see her brother get married. I didn't know who Melanie was.
Yeah.
And so went in there, and then I drove back up home and broke up with her right after that. So
Oh my gosh. Well, I
Yeah.
bet Melanie, you were just like, I'm so glad you don't want polygamy because your ex was trying to bring a 16-year-old into your relationship the second you got pregnant. And I was just like,
Yep.
what? This is crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
before we continue on, let's go ahead and get a question going. Hey, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you, Kay, or it's probably Kay, not Kai. Either way, thank you so much. I'm sorry I didn't pronounce it right. Sending love and light. Question for all. Is it easier supporting each other having both left high demand groups, or would it be easier to be with someone outside the group? That's a good question. What do you guys think?
I think for me, it's easier because we understand,
yeah.
we understand the dynamics, and there's certain things that I don't want done, but Cory understands that, hey, this is important. This will be important to our families. So let's do this. And then in my stubbornness, like I dig my heels in. I'm like, I don't want to, just because I don't want to make them feel like they're right. And Cory's like, no. So because he understands those dynamics. So for me, it was really helpful. Also, in child rearing, it's been really helpful because we both saw how we didn't want our children raised. And so we could be very much on the same page about the dynamics of how we wanted our children raised, and religiously or not religiously, or, just all of that kind of stuff. So for me, it's been easier, especially where we blended a family.
Yeah. And she's the only one I'm married, so I don't know. I haven't married anybody outside of the belief system. And so, yeah, I think it would be difficult. I've had girlfriends, and it is overwhelming when you go back to a family function and there's a lot of
500
people. Yeah. So whether we go to her family functions or mine, it's the same amount of people. So it's not as overwhelming, I guess. So
Yeah. And I think too, it's helpful in the fact that we're both the oldest.
mhm.
And so it helps because a lot of our family functions, like I feel really responsible for a lot of my siblings, and he does too. And so we can understand that. So I'm not over here judging him because he's spending too much time with his siblings, and same with him. And then we can have our get-togethers and our family functions at our home because we both understand that. So
yeah, that makes sense. For me, so my upbringing was nowhere near as intense as both of yours. So I feel like it's a different situation. Jonathan didn't really come from a high control group. He was like mildly Catholic. If that's the best way to put it, babe. Hopefully, he's in the chat. You can clear that up. So I feel like there are things that I have to explain, but we're at a point now where he just understands a lot of my background. He understands I grew up under a rock and don't know a lot of pop culture. And I think it's kind of fun for him to expose me to new things like, oh, let's watch Fight Club. You've never seen it. So there are things that are fun and things that are a little bit more tricky, but nothing that we can't deal with, especially with mainstream Mormonism that's fairly easy to, I don't want to say easy to get out of, but it's not a situation where I have hundreds of brothers and sisters and he has to jump into that, which I could see would be really hard for someone who's not used to something like that.
It really is. And some of my siblings have brought other family members to, their significant others to family get-togethers. And they've been all like, it's so overwhelming because there's literally at any family function, we'll have well over 30, 40 people just for like, oh, hey, let's just casually get together for a barbecue. And it's not even an event. It's just, hey, come over for dinner. And we've got 30 or 40 people. So when they bring their other partners, they come and they're just, their eyes are bugging out of their head. They don't understand, and the rest of us are just chilling. And so they don't get how, so it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, that was a great question. Are there any other questions before we continue on?
As far as being kind of a lost boy, with the FLDS, their families push them out. And one thing that I've got to say about my family, just because none of them came from, they all came into the AUB. Yes. Did the community welcome me with open arms? No, but they never did when we were growing up in the community either. So we were second-class citizens within. We were the workers within the community. But my family has always been, anytime I want to go up there, very welcoming.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
community that
yeah,
pushed
it's
you
the
out.
community that was like, well, you can't come to church. Well, I don't want to come to church. Thank you for giving me permission not to come to church. So I wouldn't go anyhow. So, but I'd go up to the community because it's a huge United Order, and I hang out with my family and help them
Yeah.
when they need help. And most of my siblings live up there around the community, and so I go visit them, go up to the ranch whenever I want to, so, and visit them up there
Yeah.
too, help them out. So
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great that
Yeah,
you're
they
still
actually
able to go back.
and they
Yeah.
officially kicked Cory out.
The-
So they officially
Yeah.
excommunicated Cory.
And they can say, yes, you can't come up here, but it's my family's not that they, too bad. He's more than welcome up here at any time. So I'm sure there's people up there on the ranch. But another interesting thing about the ranch or the community up there, over the last 5 to 10 years, they have, half of the community doesn't even though they were raised in it, even though they helped build up the community over years, they have left the AUB too. They don't believe in the leadership of the AUB, and half of the community up there would be considered kicked out too.
Yeah,
So,
there's a big
but they
split
still
that happened in
run.
the AUB recently. So
Yeah.
half of the people who were up there don't even believe in the AUB anymore.
Yep.
So
And so a lot of kids that I grew up with from other families up there are all up there too, visiting and
yeah.
hanging out, and none of them, it's intense how many of us grew up in that community, still go up there to visit, and none of us are a part of that community anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. Yeah.
50-50
That's great
up there,
It's
I think.
becoming more common. It wasn't that way for years. It's
Yeah.
only been that way for about the last I would say not even 10 years,
Yeah.
maybe 8 years. It's been a lot more open where
Mhm.
before it wasn't. But the prophet before my dad caused a lot of splits and divisions in the
Yeah.
AUB. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the divide come in the compound up there.
Yep.
Okay.
So
And before we talk more about the funeral and what it's like to be inserted into an event that does have AUB members, let's see if we have any other questions before we
Yeah.
keep going. Are most of the converts from the Mormon church pool? I would think it's the easiest to pull from, but are there other religions you found it easier to convert from?
No, most of them are LDS.
Mhm.
Both of my parents were raised Mormon as well. And so, yeah, it's very common. Typically, Mormons will start, or Latter-day Saints will start to research and study, and then they'll go out and they'll find a group that they want to be a part of. So they don't really proselyte as much as it's more people who are already in the Mormon church looking for something more or deeper or whatever they want to call it. And then they're seeking out people from the
Yeah.
AUB. So yeah.
Mhm.
My dad has one of his wives that was actually originally born and raised in the AUB, and the rest of them are converts as well.
Mhm.
I hadn't really thought about that. But
Yeah, my mother's whole family was Mormon, but most of my dad's first wife and himself were from a different
I thought your
religion.
dad was Protestant.
Yeah, and then they came into Mormonism, were Mormons for a couple of years, started to research all of the doctrine, and went back to the original teachings and went, they're not living it anymore. Let's find somebody who is, and
Yeah.
went from there.
That's so interesting. It's such, man, I would be interested to talk to them because Mormonism on its own, if you've never heard of it and someone's like, let me present Mormonism to you, and they
Yeah.
really tell you
Mhm.
everything, it's like, I don't know. But then when you get into the original teachings, that's even more kooky, in my opinion. And so going from non-Mormon to polygamous Mormon is such a jump. And it's also wild to me that all of your moms or your dad's sister wives, that they all are converts into polygamy, because as a woman, I feel like it would be a lot harder to tell someone, I'm going to bring you into this religion and you're going to have to share me with all these other women. Maybe I'm just territorial, but I feel
Well,
like that's a hard sell.
it is. Well, and back in the 70s, though, there was a lot of, people just wanted to belong to something. And so there was a lot of different cults that popped up in the 70s, in the late
Yeah.
60s, early 70s. And that's no different. The AUB was established in the early 70s. And so
Okay.
so Rulon Allred was the original founder of the AUB. He converted my dad and Cory's dad. And so then there was just a bunch of people getting converted all at the same time. So my dad actually married his first wife in the LDS temple here in Salt Lake, and then married my mom in the polygamous ceremonies of a year later. So it's really, back then they don't do it anymore as much, but back then there was a lot of proselyting. There was a lot of people just trying to find a place to belong, because that's really, I think, how cults get started. In my experience, is just people want a sense of belonging. And so they find where they belong, where they feel like they fit in. Oh,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, can you go back to that last comment, Jonathan? Saying going from Mormonism to AUB to the order, it's like jumping from one cult to another. But to the credit of the people who left Mormonism to go to the AUB, it is a more pure version of Mormonism, because if you look at the early teachings, Joseph Smith was saying this is the way to heaven. This is how you get eternal salvation, is through polygamy. And the mainstream Mormon church did away with it for legal reasons. And so it makes sense to me that if you're a true devout Mormon and you are seeking the early teachings of the original prophet Joseph Smith and even Brigham Young, that you would want to dive more into polygamy and live it more fully. So it makes sense in that way why people would go for Mormonism. But man, going into polygamy, I couldn't do it. Could not do it.
I know.
So let's talk about going back for this funeral. So we mentioned we're going to talk about there have been a few since you've left, but this most recent one was actually when you and I connected, Melanie. And so I thought this would be a good time to talk about those hard feelings, even just in general too, about, I've been there, when you leave a high control group and you need to go back, you have an obligation to go back. Maybe you've never wanted to go back and you have to go into that environment again, or maybe you have been back and it's not so jarring, but all the things that come with that, just the emotions of seeing the people from your past, seeing people who maybe think that you're skipping holding hands with the devil as far as being led astray, and now you're apostates, and now you're here, and are they giving you the side eye? Are they welcoming you? So let's just walk through your experience, what it was like going back for this funeral.
Well, we'll start with this and then I'll let Cory kind of take over. My ex-husband actually came from the same community that Cory did, which is how Cory knew his little sister. So that adds a whole different other element of, craziness
Judgment.
when we go up there, because everyone knew me as his wife. And so then when Cory was excommunicated, Cory was not worthy enough to have, all of this. But so it's definitely, it's been harder to go up there because I am, an apostle's daughter, and I was so-and-so's ex-wife, and Cory was excommunicated. So that adds a whole different level of, messed upness every time we go up there. But so I've been going up there since I was 12, but yeah, now you being kicked out. So he was officially asked to leave and never come back.
Yep. And you say holding the devil's hand and skipping down the road. No, they considered me the devil himself.
Oh my gosh.
No.
That's extreme.
I'm sarcastic about the religion itself. I try to point out how it conflicts with each other. I mean, it says one thing and then changes its mind. And so I studied their scriptures and stuff like that. And then we're comedians about it. So we make fun of the Lord's anointed and things like that, which is not.
But it can get intense. We were
but-
talking about an experience that we had where we went and there was some big community thing at the park. The park is like the local little where everyone comes and gathers, which is where the funeral was held. And there was people that I was friends with when I was married to my ex-husband. And yeah, we got a lot of stare downs, and there are times when I don't like to go to the community center because there's the church and the community center and the park, and they're all right there, where it does feel awkward. It does feel uncomfortable. You're getting stared down by people like you're not supposed to be here, and it can get a little intense depending on who's there. So
yeah, a lot of people, everything's about class, who your dad is, how long your family's been a part of the AUB. If your dad's the apostle or a prophet, and they don't understand, my dad wasn't any of that. We were kind of the worker family within the community. Nobody was clamoring to marry into our family, and then I was. But then all of a sudden I'm marrying her, and they don't understand
daughter.
Yeah, they're okay to date and marry into our family, our sisters, but they would rather the guys just leave, just go away. And unfortunately the old man made a lot of boys, so I don't think they were like, I don't understand what she sees in him, why she would marry into the family. It's all about the clout and everything. And we were I was gone for I don't know,
10 years before.
Yeah, 10 years. So I didn't care about their clout. I didn't want to marry into their royal inbred families. So I had no desire to be a part of it. But yeah, when we get back up there and here are these worthy members around, and we're showing up as, I don't know, outsiders, and they just don't understand why she would marry me and marry into our family if she was looking for clout. And she wasn't. We were looking to be in love and work on building a family. And she got to know me. Nobody wanted to get to know us up there. So to be a part of our family, especially the guys. So
I have a question for you, Cory. So does their projection of unworthiness ever get to you? I know that you're far removed from it. You seem very level-headed, but at the end of the day, we all want to be liked and accepted. Do you feel that ever gets to you when you get up there and you get those feelings of unworthiness pointed at you?
No, not from who it comes from. Those people that knew who I was, that I'm friends with still today, those outsider kids that I grew up with, we are all still friends. We also have sense of humor. And I would have to say, yes, when I first got excommunicated, why? I was wondering why. And then I went back up there and saw the old men who excommunicated me, these frail old men. And I'm like, why am I angry? Why am I frustrated that these guys are the ones that kicked me out? And I went through a lot of healing and a lot of self-worth things. And I don't, to be a part of that community. I'm part of the community of people that I love and care about up there. All the rest of them, their opinions mean nothing to me. So
that's good.
I don't want to be a part of their families or their communities. And I have some great friends that I grew up there, and family and extended family that are all a part of it, and love them to pieces. But yeah, no, to be honest, her dad likes me, and he's the prophet now. So
he likes
all of
he doesn't like me anymore, but he does love Cory.
All of the people who are sitting there, oh my gosh, I can't believe you'd be hanging out with a guy like that. Well, the prophet hangs out with me now. So
yeah. So Melanie, as the prophet's daughter, when you go back, do people give you those pitiful, like, oh, I feel so bad for her, she fell off the path, and do they try to get you to come back?
For years they did. And after I married Cory, my dad tried to get us both to come back for years. But now I guess it doesn't bother me anymore. There's a point where I really just, I don't give it any energy when I am around it. There's some people that, yes, it can get hurtful.
Mhm.
You know, I had an experience not too long ago where one of the women that I since I was 12 years old, this woman has been wonderful to me. And I saw her recently, and I went to hug her, and she was like so standoffish. And I said, "Do you know who I am?" And she was like, "Oh, I know exactly who you are."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
I've been friends with her daughter and I were really good friends growing up." And so that was a little painful just because I didn't expect that from her. But for the most part,
Mm.
we don't really worry so much. Sometimes it's like we just laugh like, "Oh, okay, well, I can see where you're at on your healing journey." And so it's really just knowing where people are at in their healing versus where we have come from. We don't ever want to go back to that, just that messing with your mind.
Close-mindedness. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well,
And I
just
got to
being
know
able to
Cory.
see from that, just being able to see from that
Yeah.
perspective of they're in a different place than me and not taking it
Mhm.
personally just shows how far you've come in your healing journey. Because in the beginning,
Mhm.
it's really hard to separate yourself from someone who is still in the group and understand that they're working on their own programming and their perspectives are
Exactly.
still
Mhm.
colored by the cult. And so I think that's so much progress, even if it stings a little bit. Understanding why they're acting the way that they're acting is such a good place to be in. Before we continue, let's take a few
Yeah.
more questions. Lissa, good to see you. So, if I understand this correctly, your father is the current prophet that took over after Warren Jeff. So, we're talking about a different break-off group of the LDS Church. So, FLDS, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that is the group run by Warren Jeffs, who is currently in prison. The AUB was, as they were mentioning, started in the 70s. So, I think that's quite a bit later than the FLDS. They started
Well,
much
they
earlier,
were
didn't they?
all one group for the
They were
longest
all
time.
one group.
We were all one group,
Oh,
and then it
okay.
branched off. And Rulin Jeffs took over the FLDS, and Rulin
Mm-hmm.
Allred took over the AUB. So there was two
Got
Rulins, those
it.
people, but you've got Rulin Jeffs took over that, and so that's when the split happened. And then FLDS went their way, AUB went their way, and it literally split families in two.
Mhm.
And so you've got a lot of
Got
families that are
it.
intermingled with both groups because of that. So yeah, you'll see a lot
Okay.
of major splits happen throughout time, like you just did with the previous prophet from my dad. There was another
Mhm.
big split in the AUB, and then you've seen the big splits in the FLDS. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very common for people to go, "Oh, you don't have the right priesthood, you do," and then they just they go different directions.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't realize they came from the FLDS. And then even within the
mhm,
FLDS, they split and then it was the work
mhm,
on its own, right? There are just
mhm.
it's
Mhm.
so hard to keep track of all the
It
different groups. And
is.
I just got a submission yesterday from someone who was part of a polygamous sect in Mexico that was not the LeBaron group. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's so many. I'm learning every day.
AUB has a sect in Mexico as well that's
Really?
part of the LeBaron group. Yeah. And so they have it's a big colony down there now. They have a temple down there and everything. So that's where
Is
my
it
ex-husband's family is from.
Oh, is it still called the AUB or is it called something
Uh-huh.
else?
Yeah, it's still
Okay.
called the AUB.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. If you search the history, every polygamous sect is a split from a split from a
An
split.
apostasy from an apostasy
And
from
they
an
all
apostasy.
believe that they have
They're
the
the only
true
one.
Yeah.
They're
we
the right
have the
one.
true keys to the priesthood. So it's fun to watch them all try to do their genealogy and prove that they're the right ones. So
Mhm.
Of course. Yeah, don't even get me started on the order. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, so, oh wait, we should probably do one or two more questions before I keep going.
Mhm.
Okay, another question. Hey, do y'all have an intake form or something for people who have left high demand groups? Yes, we do. We have it so if you're on YouTube, it's in the About section. There's a link. It's a jot form. And I think it just says be a guest. You can click that. If you're on Instagram, we have it in our bio and in our highlights. So it's a good way to keep all of our potential guests in one place and help us sort through all of the stories. There's so many people who write in. We feel honored that people feel safe enough to come to us with their stories. And so please don't feel bad if we're unable to respond, because we do get so many people writing into us. So, okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Did you ever feel a breaking point where you could leave your quote old selves or old beliefs behind? What brought it on? Maybe after you're already out of the group, was there a moment where you evolved into the new version of you? Was it a gradual thing?
I think
Yeah.
it was more gradual for both of us. Because I had left the group, the AUB, when I was 22, and then I went back when I was 24, and I left again when I was almost 26. So I had that couple years where I was just like, I was kind of going back and forth, not really sure. And then after I left when I was 26, I never went back. And I feel like that was kind of the breaking point for me of getting my divorce and taking my 3 children. And my little girl was getting to be, she was about 5 or 6 by the time I fully left. And yeah, she was really the main motivation for me leaving and just wanting to heal all those parts of myself so that she didn't have to experience that as a girl in this kind of community. So.
Yeah. What about you, Cory?
Mine was easier. You've been written out of the book of the Lamb of God, turn over the buffetings of Satan, see ya. I'm like, all right.
He got a letter that
I got to
stated all
figure
that.
something else out. Sweet.
You got a letter that said that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he got an excommunication letter. He makes fun of it, but it was traumatic, as it was a very big experience for them, for the whole family.
You're raised up telling you this is the only way. This is the only way for you to get into heaven. And we, as the Lord's anointed, have figured out that you can never do it. And so here's your letter of excommunication. We've written you out of the book of the Lamb of God, and there you go. Go out into the world and be turned over to the buffeting of Satan. I'm like, sweet. Okay, let me go figure that out. So
did you have any inclination of maybe I should just go sow my wild oats and then come back? Were you kind of relieved to be out of the group? Were you upset?
Yeah.
How were you feeling?
Yeah,
all of the above.
All of the above. My dad and I had I don't even know. We had differences of opinion. He had me reading all of the scriptures, doing all of this studying, asking questions. And then I learned about their temple ceremony, and I'm like, that's absolutely wrong. That's against all of your guys' teachings. And he's like, no, it's different. And I'm like, well, I'll never do it. And so there were fundamental arguments that I had with my dad of things that I would never do. I would never go through their temple. I would never swear or do signs and tokens, because in the scriptures that he was making me read, those were not of the Lord. So yeah, we had fundamental arguments from probably 15 on. And so I knew that, and I had those same arguments with a lot of the leaders up there. So,
yeah.
And so when they had called me into their little meeting, I argued out that their faith might not be following the right faith that they'd been teaching all of us. And so they're like, yeah, you're not welcome as part of our faith, because you won't do what we tell you to do. So
yeah.
I'm like, hey, cool. So, but I was the first one being excommunicated from my family, and it was super hard on my mom and my parents. They didn't understand it.
To this day, she still struggles with it.
Yeah. And then that came to basically, it was great, because then it was a trial on faith. It started having a lot of my family question the faith that they were a part of. And so after that, they didn't really have to excommunicate. They excommunicated another one of my brothers, but after that, they didn't have to excommunicate. People were just leaving. My family was just leaving, like, yeah, this the wrong, Dad picked the wrong group, the wrong religion. So,
Yeah.
so yep, a lot of them have just left.
So you said only 3 siblings are still in. What about all of the mothers?
There's only 3 still living,
Yep.
and 2 of them still believe in it. One has left and joined the Mormon church, but the other 2 still, one is very active at the AUB. The other one is not as active, but she still believes in it.
Yep.
Okay.
She believes in her testimony of ruling
already.
So she doesn't support, and that's my mother, my bio mom. She believes in the testimony she gained at the very beginning, but she doesn't believe that the AUB is being run by righteous men anymore. So,
although she does like my dad, but that's about it. So,
but the last 2 she didn't care for. So.
Yeah.
So I ask that because I want to go back to going to the funeral within your immediate, I guess you could call it, immediate family, even though there's so many of you. That wasn't really an issue as far as being looked at as an apostate if almost everyone has gone, but it's more about going into the community itself as someone who has left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was kind of surprised too, because they did have the funeral at like the community park.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, or I guess it was more of a celebration of life. She passed in December. The celebration of life was in April around her birthday.
Okay.
But yeah, that I was kind of surprised by that because having the whole family gather at the community park was because a lot of the community came in too, in through.
Yeah. A lot of close friends to our family came in. So I've had 3 siblings pass, and they have all 3 been cremated, and so which is
probably
not
the norm.
Yeah, not the norm up there, and so all 3 of them have chose to have some form of their ashes spread across the place we grew up, the valleys, everything like that. I probably the most awkward was my dad's funeral because it happened within their community building, which was awesome, but a lot of people came to
make sure things
were done right, and there were a bunch of us heathens showing up there. So
it was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was probably the most uncomfortable. This last one, family, friends, things like that, but there's no priesthood authority up there making sure that we were running the funeral,
and they were sitting in the back of the room. They were making sure that the church was.
My dad's funeral, I would have to say, is probably the most awkward up there because that was the community, and there were righteous priesthood holders that were there to make sure it was done right, and we were the ones up there kind of talking and running the ceremony too, but they wanted to make sure that it was done right. And a lot of them that were sitting in the audience had been part of me being excommunicated and a lot of my family being excommunicated, but we're all still sitting in there. I hadn't been into that church building since I had been excommunicated, so that was probably more awkward.
I have one more question for you, and then we'll take questions from the chat. So what would make the funeral be non-compliant, or what were they trying to make sure you were doing right or wrong?
Well, first of all, they didn't want it to be at that building, is what it seems like. They were all upset. And Cory's dad was not in good standing when he left. So there was people there to make sure that, was he buried in his temple clothes? Because he shouldn't be. Was he, was there, there's no swearing in the building. Just like, there's just people who are like, you don't hold the right energy about this entire thing. So they're back there like this, just staring the whole community down. And a lot of the family members down. Yeah, and
they dressed his body in his burial clothes,
in his temple
and some of them, most of us weren't a part of the AUB. We had left. We were no longer considered welcome. I was worried. I was asked not to come back up there, and my parents are like, too bad, he gets to come up whenever he wants. All of us siblings went back up there whenever we wanted. And now we were coming up to bury our dad, and I had a brother that used to tie fishing flies, and he would tie those fishing flies for my dad. Sorry.
This gets him emotional every time.
And so he was going to leave a momentum and give dad 2 of his gold-butted renegades that he had specifically tied for him to fish in the afterlife. And so he hooked them through the sash of his temple clothes, and people were visibly upset, and the rest of us are all standing around like, oh my gosh, good going, bud. And loving on our dad, loving being there, loving being our whole family up there, and could care less what the clowns in the back, or sorry, the righteous men in the back were thinking, saying, or doing, or judging us about how we were going to put our dad to rest. So, and he wanted to be put to rest with some of his other wives had passed and were buried in the cemetery up there.
The church cemetery.
Yeah, the Pinesdale Cemetery, and he was being buried there right along with his wives. And yeah, we didn't do it by protocol at all. So they asked me to give the blessing,
the opening
prayer. And I hadn't prayed since I was a kid there. And so I forgot how rhythmically they end it, and I didn't know the whole process, and I couldn't remember the word amen or amen, whatever it was.
In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
There we go. I couldn't remember how they ended their prayers. And so I get up there and thank everybody for coming. We really love the support we have, and I wish you all a nice day, and went and sat down, and everybody still got their head bowed and eyes closed, waiting for me to end the prayer. And I'm sitting back in the thing like I ended it. And so my family mocks me to this day. Can I get have a nice day instead of an amen? Because I didn't know how to end their prayers. He sat
down, and I put my arms around him. I'm like, or you could have said, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And he's like, that's what it is. I totally forgot.
That's it.
So he just
I deleted all that information.
He told everybody, thank you for coming. Have a nice day. And the leadership in the back.
Yeah.
I instantly looked to the back, and the leadership was so angry. And there was a lot of, he makes light of it, but there was a lot of heaviness around it.
There was judgment.
The mothers mostly received it. The mothers are grieving, obviously, their husband passing, and the leadership's coming to them saying, hey, wait a minute, this won't be happening in our church building. So there was a lot of drama around it.
Oh my gosh. It just bothers me so much that even in death, they can't just loosen the F up. Just let you grieve how you want to grieve. The man's gone. It doesn't matter what he's wearing. It's what you wanted to bury him in. It's what made you guys feel happy and at peace. It's no longer, it's just, it's so aggravating that they're still enforcing these arbitrary rules that somebody made up one day, and shrouding a day that is already full of grief with more grief and drama. And it's just so aggravating that happened to you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's just comical because he's going to get on the other side and have fishing flies in his, and I think he'll be probably pretty cool. And
they wear the same temple clothes as the LDS temple, so you're going to have
I was going to ask.
Yeah, they're all the same. And so Cory never went through the temple, so he never got them. I did. I actually still even have my temple bag with all my temple clothes in it, just somewhere in we built a home and has storage space. I threw it down there. So I still have all my temple clothes. But Cory's dad requested to be buried in his temple clothes. And that was a lot of controversy around that.
Yeah, we honored his wishes, and they can be all judgy if they didn't want him buried that way. We can bury him any way we want. So it's his wishes. So
jeez. All right, let's look for some more questions here. I would love to hear more about Melanie's ayahuasca journey and deconstruction, and if Cory or Shalise have similar stories. Go ahead.
In fact, we just barely came across one of the ayahuasca videos that we did. So we I wanted to video record because I wanted to see if our faces changed after we came out of ayahuasca, and boy, have they changed so much. But so we made a video just sitting in our hotel room. We did it here in the United States. There was a place down in Florida that we went down to in 2020. And so we made this video of us, like, I don't know, what was it, like 10 minutes maybe, of us just talking about like, what do we hope to get out of this experience? And then, yeah, now we need to go do like a before and after shot because we look like completely different people. And I zoomed in on our eyes because I wanted to see how our eyes would change once we had this experience. So yeah, it was, have you, I don't know if you want to share that with the world, but yeah, we have done ayahuasca. We loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a huge part of my journey, and this channel wouldn't exist without it, actually. It was a very pivotal moment for me in Peru. I actually went as an actor. I was hired to go and experience the retreat, and they would film my experiences and interviews and things like that and use it for promotional material for the center. So it was the way that I got to the job was insane. It was so synchronistic. I knew I needed to be there. It was at a time of my life that was legitimately rock bottom and exactly what I needed. And basically, through that chain of events, here is Cults to Consciousness. So
I
I will
love it.
say, I have to make a huge disclaimer here because I know that there are centers that abuse ayahuasca, that don't give it the what's the right word? That aren't
Respect.
honoring the medicine, the respect, aren't honoring the traditions of it. It's a medicine that is hundreds and hundreds of years old from the deepest part of the Amazon. And I do feel like it is exploited in so many parts of the world. So I have to give that reverence to it. And if anyone ever seeks it out, know that it is a hard thing. It's not a casual, it's not a recreational thing. It is, you go to do the work. You spend months beforehand preparing your body because it's physically taxing and laborious. And if you ever go to seek it out, really make sure that you are finding the right people to hold space for you and to take care of you. I mean, the center that I went to, they actually have you do an intake call with a nurse to make sure that you're physically able to do it, and to make sure that the people who are there with you facilitating know all of the things to do for safety reasons as well. So all of those disclaimers aside, it's a very transformative medicine, and I did a video on it. I think it was like my, I don't know, around 6th or 7th video ever on the channel, just me talking to the camera. It's the only one, that and the first episode are the only one that's just me looking at camera and telling a story. So if you guys ever want to go check that out, not you guys personally, but if the audience wants to go check that out, you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I agree with you. We did a lot of research before we settled on a place, and we are going to talk about it. We have not made a video about it. We are going to talk about it. Cory here gets a little nervous being in front of the camera. So we've been trying to get used to filming and used to speaking, and so that we both can like clean up our language and clean up our ums and our pauses and all that other stuff before we start to go into more of those types of stories. So
yeah, I would never be
You know
doing
what you're
it.
talking
I'd
about.
never be doing an interview if I hadn't gone through that process. I was,
of ayahuasca.
Interesting.
she finally went, hey, do you want to get in here and do I think it was a live and talk to some people? And my first instinct was absolutely not. But because of agreements that I had made, I'm like,
Ayahuasca. Yeah.
I'm absolutely willing to try anything. So yeah, just jumped in
I love
and
it.
started talking.
That's great.
I've
It's
always
such
been
a
very
mind
vocal.
expanding thing. Sorry,
It
what?
really is. No, I've just always been very vocal about the way we grew up, and Cory has not been. And so it was really hard for him when we first got together, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is where I came from. Yeah, my ex, and Cory's like, wait, we don't tell people where we came from. What are you doing? And so it was really hard for him to adjust to that. Especially in our office space where people were like, wait, you guys know polygamous people? Because we had some polygamous people come in, and I'm like, yeah, my parents are polygamous. And Cory's like, don't tell people at work. We can't tell people that, like, and so I've really had to ease him into being openly able to talk about things, because I didn't choose the way my parents decided to live. I grew up that way. I don't choose it now. So I can't, to me, I didn't have any embarrassment or shame around it.
Yeah, which leads me to my last question, and then we'll take any final questions from you guys, the audience. So you have a YouTube channel, Notes to Self 444, where you talk about the AUB and your experiences. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was when you did go back for the funeral recently, or the celebration of life, you had family go, stay a while. We have some questions. Like, what are you guys doing over on YouTube? So what was that experience like? Were they welcoming of the information? Were they upset at you guys for talking about it? How was that?
Go for it.
You for it. Most of my family is very when they communicate with me, they're like, "Oh, how come you haven't talked about this story, or how come you haven't gone
always giving us
this forward,
ideas of
giving me
things.
more ideas
Oh,
on
wow.
things like that." I do have family that is still very loyal in it, and they're not going to talk to me about it, and that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, one thing that this does is, as we're talking about how we grew up, things like that, sometimes I get emotional, and I'm telling my story, kind of how I went there. And I do have family reaching out going, "I'm sorry if I was a part of that. I really love you. Can you forgive me?" And I know we have built relationships up over the years since I left, that we are all completely different humans since when we were being raised as little kids. I love my mother's. I love my dad. Did I butt heads with him? Did I have issues with him? Absolutely. Have I chosen to raise my kids differently based off of the way I was raised? Absolutely. But I have a sweet mom that reached out to me, and because of some of the things I broke down on as I'm going through this, and she's like, I love you so much, and I want to know. And I'm like, we
It's
are
just a different
good.
mother, not his
We
biological
are
mother.
so good. We have done so much healing. One of the things is when I got excommunicated, she wrote me like a 6 or 7 page letter telling me how proud she was as a human I was, and she loved me, and asked for forgiveness for things that went on when I was a little kid. But that's who. So yes, I have connected with a lot of my family. That as I tell my story, I try to put humor on it. Sometimes it kicks my butt, and I get a little choked up about things that went on. And so when she sensed that and felt that, and she reaches out to me and loves on me, so, and make sure we're good. And I love those guys to pieces. So
Yeah.
That's
Thanks to
so great to
ayahuasca.
hear.
yep.
Yeah. Ayahuasca really opened our eyes to having to relationships are the most important thing.
Mhm.
And so we have really, in the last 5 years, really nurtured our relationships and done our very best to heal them. And so I would say the majority of our family does support us,
Mhm.
and they are literally calling us and going, "You need to talk about this, or you need to talk about this, or you need to talk about this." And so it was really, our trip to Montana was very healing. We did sit with a lot of people that were saying, "Thank you. Thank you for talking about this. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for being the target that people, because we do
Yeah.
get some backlash. We do get some people who get angry. People have been told, stay away from her. She's just angry." And so we do get some of that stuff coming back too. But really, relationships, we love to sit with our people and heal if that's what is required. And this Montana trip was very healing in a lot of ways for a lot of people. And I did tell a story. One of the things, she will probably watch this, but I told a story on our channel, and one of the sister-in-laws comes up and she's like, "I have to tell you something so funny." And I told it from her sister wife's point of view, because I was friends with the sister wife. And she goes, "I had the same thing happen to me." I'm like, "I know, sweetheart, that story was about you." I just couldn't say your name. I just told it from the sister wife's perspective. And so yeah, we've really worked on nurturing and healing those relationships, because in the end, that's really, when you leave this planet, that's all you have, those relationships. And so we do try to be as respectful and love our family members as deeply as possible.
Yeah, even my family members that are still a part of the AUB, yes, they're probably not too pleased that I call their way of living a cult. You know what I mean? It's just a cult. That's all it is. You call it religion, I call it cult. They all kind of, and so I've got a sense of humor with them, but yes, they're probably judge me a little bit that I have fallen away from the path that we were raised, and that's fine. I just chose a different path, and a lot of us have. So,
Yeah.
and if they want to hang in there for a couple more years before they realize what's going on, and they might die in there, but it's taken, some of us got scooted out really quickly. Others took a couple years to figure out what was going on. It's a joke up there. And so I feel like as I come with it with a sense of humor and joke about it, it's easier for them to take, and they're, well, yeah, what you're saying is true. So, and it's got some humor in it. And so then they start to question, and yeah, that 39, there's
Yeah.
only 3 still hanging up there, doing
Well,
pretty good.
And one of the things Cory, one of the things Cory said was, getting excommunicated from the church was probably up until that point the most devastating thing that had ever happened
Mhm.
in his life. It was full on devastating. But now that he's an adult, he looks back and says that was
It was the best thing that
could have
ever
happened to
happened.
me.
Yeah,
So
it really
Yeah.
was. But not only for me, but I feel like for my family, because then all of a sudden my family started questioning what? So, because I was a likable guy. So,
Yeah, you guys are both likable, of course. That's why so many people watch your videos. But I'm
yeah.
so happy to hear that you have a family who is open to maintaining those relationships, a family who is welcoming of you despite what you do, and also supportive of what you do. That's so hard to come by, I think, in a lot of these
Mhm.
groups, people who have left high control groups, especially ones that are so insulated like yours. So I'm so happy to hear that that's the case. Before we go, let's see if we have any more final questions. Such
Look at
amazing
that.
people. Y'all are the most worthy. You're correct. Their opinions don't matter. You can see the love
Mhm.
between the two of you. Oh, so sweet.
thank you.
So happy to catch a live. Thank you so much to Melanie and Cory for sharing your history. Yes, thank you, Nadine. Any other final thoughts? Myth Vision, what's up? We need to connect. We keep talking about doing another episode. Go check out Myth Vision. He has an amazing channel.
Oh,
I
I'll
don't
have
even
to
know
look
how to
him
sum
up.
it up. He talks all things Bible and mythology, and he has on experts. So many great videos over there. I adore this channel. It's fun to watch. Shalise is a rockstar interviewer. Oh, you're the best, Debbie. Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And Lissa, appreciate you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to this channel, and obviously Notes to Self 444. Everything you need to know is in the
Thanks, guys.
description. You can click on that. Go subscribe to their channel, watch their videos. Definitely watch the video we did with Melanie. It's our latest video, I think, that we just put out. Yes, it should be up on our homepage. And any other final thoughts, guys, before we go?
No, just thank you so much. Thank you
Yep.
for finding anything interesting in what we have to say. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
many interesting things to talk about. We could probably go on for hours.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we could for sure.
Yes, amazing. Thank you guys for watching and supporting. The best way to support the channel is to just engage with this post in any way, liking,
Mhm.
commenting, especially after the video is posted, and like at the replay crew. And if you want to support further, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/cults to consciousness. You could become one of those supporters. We are introducing channel memberships soon, and we're going to Mexico. If you guys want to come, we have one more discounted spot left. The link is in the description, and I think that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you, Melanie and Cory, for being here. And until next time, follow your highest excitement, be conscious, and be well.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yep.